Today's message comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 20, verses 27 through 38. If you have your Bible, please follow along. The resurrection and marriage. Some of the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to Jesus with a question. "Teacher," they said, "Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a widow, but no children, the man must marry the widow and have children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first one married a woman and died childless. The second, and then the third, married her, and in the same way the 7 died, leaving no children. Finally, the woman died too. Now then, at the resurrection, whose wife shall she be, since the 7 were married to her?" Jesus replied, "The people of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy of taking part in that age and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage, and they can no longer die, for they are like angels. They are God's children, since they are children of the resurrection. But in the account of the bush, even Moses showed that the dead rise, for he calls the Lord of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living, for to him all are alive." Some of the teachers of the law responded, "Well said, teacher," and no one dared to ask him any more questions. Today's sermon, Jesus challenged by the Sadducees. They're Sadducees, I'll explain that in a moment. A message no man wants to hear. Okay? A message no man wants to hear. I asked you to look at the faces of the young ladies here. Which one's the bride? The veil clearly says she's the bride. And what sign is she holding? Your. Our expression is, here comes the bride. Instead, here comes your bride. And everyone is smiling except her. Now, I had the honor and opportunity growing up to see 2 Muslim weddings, and they are interesting. Have you ever had this opportunity to be present at a Muslim wedding?
I have.
Okay. Have you? Okay, I thought that was probably the case. So one of the weird things that happened at the wedding was that the bride, my sister-in-law, sat on one end of the room, the ballroom, and my brother sat on the other, elevated, with the imam and his father, his future father-in-law. And they had a legal meeting in which they, in Arabic, discussed the arrangements and the appropriate, I don't know what the word is for it, but legal transactions that were about to happen so that he could become, essentially, his future wife's owner. That was part of the culture. Now, I'm using Islam, but I don't want you to think I'm persecuting Islam here, because this was also true in Judaism, and this was true in all ancient Middle Eastern wedding ceremonies, which is what Christianity is based on today. We've, of course, grown and matured and changed, but this your concept is still something that is in play even in modern marriage today. So, marriage could be a prison-like situation. This is just happens to be the church's walkway here for this picture, but it could be a cell. Who's on which side? I don't know. Which side's more free? Maybe. He's the one reaching through, which indicates to me that he's the one who's being imprisonated. But you could be, especially an unhappy marriage, could be a prison sentence. So here comes your bride. A message no man wants to hear, said by Jesus today. What is happening here? Jesus is being challenged by Sadducees, not just Sadducees, but specifically Sadducees who did not believe in the resurrection. Even in Judaism to this day, a resurrection is a widely debated concept. Even, and this is going to kind of be shocking, the idea of a heaven is a widely debated concept. Not all Jews in traditional Judaism believe that there is a heaven. That's a Christian concept. And if there's no heaven, there's also no hell in their concept. There's just either one residing place or nothingness, okay? So their faith's more about life than death focus. But in Christianity, and we do have indications that Jesus spoke of a fiery furnace, which makes us say, especially as referenced in Matthew 25, well, there's probably some kind of hell, right? An eternal unhappy place. And we have this idea of a resurrection, which most of us Christians, modern day Christians, convert, oh, he's talking about when Jesus comes back and we're all in heaven. But if you're a part of certain groups of Christianity, like I have some in my family, Seventh-day Adventists don't believe in this heaven concept. They believe that, and we can still all agree on several things here if you don't agree with me on this, but I'm just going to share with you what they believe. They believe that when you die, your body goes to sleep and your soul goes to sort of a numb state where it is learning nothing, experiencing nothing, and communicating with nothing, and that it is within your body. Your body goes into the ground and maybe it decays. But when Jesus returns in the next coming or the second coming, Jesus will take all of the molecules that made your body, all the parts, the dust will come back together, and you will rise physically on earth from the grave and live in this resurrection, and your soul will be awake again inside that new body, restored, healthy body, perfect body. And that they're not the only Christians that believe this. There are many denominations that believe that. Whichever which you are, you're welcome here. You could believe that, or you could believe what I tend to believe, which is that we die and we go to heaven, and that these resurrection statements are more about eternity in heaven, okay? So, moving on from this, we have this kinsman redeemer law. That's what's referred to in Deuteronomy. In it, it says that the eldest brother, he is married. Everyone celebrates. He is the one who carries on the family name, the eldest brother, right? If he dies before he is able to father an heir must be fathered. So in order to this heir to come along, according to the law in Deuteronomy, it says that the next brother must marry the wife. First, he has to take responsibility for her. She is not a widow that will be thrown out on the street. She is a part of this family, and he must take responsibility for feeding her, sheltering her, all the days of her life, just as if he was married to her himself. Even if he's married to someone else, he must marry her, and she must also bear a child. If she bears a child, the child is not his child. The child is his brother's child. And this child, his brother's child, is the heir to the family name and the family, if they have anything to pass on. So that is called the kinsman redeemer law, which is what the Sadducees are referring to. They're using this law because they don't believe in the resurrection. They don't believe there is such a thing. They're part of that group of Jews that don't interpret that way. They don't see that. So they're trying to catch Jesus. They're hoping he'll say one of the seven, the first or the last, or the most convenient choices. Either one he says, he's going to be wrong, because then they're going to point out all the reasons why the resurrection isn't a real thing. They had no idea what he was about to say. Because in their worldview, in their context, women were property and owned by all of these men. They were not equal to men in that culture. So the choice of the question is irrelevant to the Sadducees, like I just said. They don't care if he says the first or the last. They just want one, so that they can then exploit what Jesus has said to then debate him and continue in this rabbinical tradition of continuous debate, civil, nonviolent debate over what the scriptures mean. And they are ready to enter into this with him. But then he says something that silences them. And remember the last statement, it says some, not all of them, said, "You have spoken wisely, teacher." And they had no further questions. So Jesus tells us with his reply, This is the most important one for everyone, whether you're male or female, whether you're married or single. We will not be married in the resurrection. That's the simplest meaning. But the more expanded meaning of that is in eternity, in heaven, when you die, you are you. You are not defined by your marriage. You will not be betrothed to anyone, I guess, unless you choose in this new identity in heaven to go and meet someone. Marriage has an earthly purpose, and I'm going to tell you about the 5 P's. I got this from another person, but this is something that's cycled around throughout Protestant Christianity, and I think it's pretty clever. You can take or leave these 5 P's. It's non-salvific, meaning we don't have to agree on them. The 5 P's are this. The 5 earthly purposes for marriage. One is the most obvious, procreation. Okay? Another P is pleasure, enjoyment. But with pleasure comes sexual pleasure, that is, protection, because you have an exclusive relationship. Another one is picture, as they say, picture. An image of the relationship, which we found in Ephesians 5, that's supposed to parallel God and Christ's relationship with the church. So a picture of the relationship of the church. And partnership. So you're not alone, and you spend your life and you have someone you can depend on. Now, do we have to be married to have a partnership? No. We may have someone in our life that is like a partner to us. It could be our sibling. It could be our best friend. It doesn't have to have romantic connotations. Okay? But ideally, it would be great if our partner, our relationship partner, was that person. So those are the 5 P's. These are earthly things. Okay? These are not afterlife things. And here's the most important message for you today. Our faith, which is what is required for eternity, to have faith in Jesus Christ, does not depend on our marital status. We are all individuals, and we are unique to God, and our faith is a relationship between us and God, not between us and our partner and God. So, even though oftentimes when we're doing marriage training, we'll do this pyramid concept, that as we grow closer together, we go up the pyramid towards God. Sounds nice, looks nice. Ultimately, if you never marry, it's okay. You're a fine person just the way you are, and God loves you just the way you are. And that message, that reply to the Sadducees was so radically opposite from what they were looking for that it silenced them. So, message for you today. Your faith does not depend on your marital status.